The entire history of Romania is a land of high mountains, wide open plains, and a long, proud history. It sits at the crossroads of Europe, where East meets West, a place shaped by war, faith, and the unbreakable spirit of its people. For over 2,000 years, this land has seen empires rise and fall. Yet through it all, the Romanian people have survived, and their language and culture have lived on. This is their story. The Dacians and Rome long before Romania had a name. These lands were home to a proud and powerful people called the Dacians. They lived in the Carpathian Mountains and were known for their skill in working with iron and gold. Their king, Decebalus, ruled from a great mountain fortress called Sarmizegetusa Regia. The Dacians were rich, strong, and deeply spiritual. They worshipped a god called Zalmoxis and believed in life after death. But their wealth and power caught the eye of Rome. In 101 AD, the Roman Emperor Trajan led his armies across the Danube River into Dacian lands. It was one of the greatest military campaigns of the ancient world. The Dacians fought back hard. King Decebalus used the mountains cleverly, turning narrow mountain passes into deadly traps for the Roman soldiers. But Rome had more men, better weapons, and endless resources. Trajan even built a massive stone bridge across the Danube just to show that Rome was there to stay. After years of fierce fighting, the Roman armies finally broke through the Dacian defenses. As the enemy entered, his capital city, King Decebalus, chose death over capture. He killed himself under a tree rather than be taken prisoner to Rome. The Dacian kingdom fell. Rome took an enormous amount of gold and silver from Dacia, so much that it helped Rome's economy for an entire generation. But the most important result of this conquest was not gold. It was people. Roman soldiers and settlers moved into Dacia and began to mix with the local Dacian population. Over time, a new people were born, the ancestors of today's Romanians. They spoke a language based on Latin, the language of Rome. This is why Romanian today is a Latin language related to Italian, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. The Roman conquest was, in many ways, the birth of the Romanian nation, the age of princes fighting the Ottoman Empire. After the fall of Rome, many different groups of people passed through these lands: Goths, Huns, Slavs, and others. Over hundreds of years, three separate Romanian regions took shape: Wallachia in the south, Moldavia in the east, and Transylvania in the west. By the 1400s, a new and very powerful empire had risen in the south, the Ottoman Empire, based in what is now Turkey. The Ottomans had one of the strongest armies in the world, and they were moving north, taking over Christian kingdoms one by one. The Romanian princes stood directly in their path. Two men became legends during this dangerous time. The first was Vlad III of Wallachia, better known as Vlad the Impaler, or Dracula, meaning son of the dragon. Vlad was a cruel but clever ruler. When the Ottomans came with a massive army, he could not match them in open battle. So he used fear as a weapon. He ordered captured enemies to be impaled on long wooden stakes, creating a horrifying scene that stopped the Ottoman army in its tracks. The Ottoman Sultan was so disturbed by what he saw that he turned his army around. Vlad's tactics were brutal, but they worked. The second great hero was Stephen the Great of Moldavia. Stephen was a military genius who won 46 battles in his lifetime. He built churches and monasteries after each victory as a way of giving thanks to God. Stephen's army used the land itself as a weapon, burning fields, poisoning wells, and luring enemies into forests and marshes where they could not fight properly. Stephen became so famous that the Pope himself called him the champion of Christ. Neither prince could defeat the Ottomans completely. In the end, the Romanian lands were forced to pay tribute, money and supplies, to keep the Ottomans from destroying them. But they were never fully conquered. They kept their own rulers, their own language, and their own Christian faith. In a time when many kingdoms were swallowed whole by the Ottoman Empire, this was a remarkable achievement. The birth of a nation. By the early 1800s, the world was changing. In France, a revolution had swept away kings and nobles. New ideas about freedom, rights, and national identity were spreading across Europe. Young Romanians who had studied in Paris came home with fire in their hearts. They began to ask, why are our people divided? Why do we live under the control of foreign powers? They made a powerful discovery: their language. Romanian was clearly related to Latin, the language of ancient Rome. This meant they were descendants of the Romans, a proud and ancient people. This idea gave them a new sense of pride and purpose. The big moment came in 1859. Both Wallachia and Moldavia held elections to choose their ruling prince, and both regions chose the same man, Alexandru Ioan Cuza. In one bold move, the two regions had united under a single leader. The great powers of Europe were shocked, but they accepted it. This small union was the first step toward a united Romania. Cuza worked hard to modernize the country. He broke up the large estates of the wealthy and gave land to peasants, built schools, and reformed the law. But the real dream was independence. That moment came in 1877. Romania joined Russia in a war against the Ottomans. Romanian soldiers fought bravely in the bloody siege of Plevna, charging into heavy fire to help break the Ottoman defenses. Their courage shocked everyone. In 1808, Romania was officially recognized as an independent country. The long shadow of Ottoman control was finally gone. Under King Carol I, Romania built railways, roads, and a modern army. The capital, Bucharest, grew into a beautiful city full of wide streets and European-style buildings. People began calling it the Little Paris of the East. Greater Romania and the World Wars. Romania's greatest dream was what they called Greater Romania, the uniting of all Romanian-speaking lands under one flag. That dream came true on December 1, 1918, when Transylvania joined the Romanian kingdom. Crowds gathered in the city of Alba Iulia, singing and weeping with joy. For the first time in history, nearly all Romanians lived in one country. The 1920s and 1930s brought a period of growth and culture. Bucharest was vibrant and modern, but dark clouds were gathering over all of Europe. The 1940s brought disaster. Caught between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, Romania was forced to give up large pieces of its territory. The country entered World War II on the side of Germany, sending soldiers to fight on the Eastern Front in Russia. Tens of thousands of Romanian men died in the freezing Russian winter. Then, in August 1944, Romania suddenly switched sides and joined the Allies. Romanian soldiers now fought against Germany until the end of the war. But this move came too late to save Romania from the next danger, the Soviet Union. After the war, Soviet troops were stationed across the country. Step by step, the communists took control of the government. The king was forced to leave. Romania became a communist state, cut off from the Western world. The communist years and Nicolae Ceausescu, life under communism started with some promise of change, but it quickly became difficult and frightening. By the 1960s and 70s, a man named Nicolae Ceausescu had risen to become the all-powerful leader of Romania. At first, he was even admired in the West because he refused to simply follow every order from Moscow. But inside Romania, his rule became increasingly harsh and strange. Ceausescu decided that Romania must pay off all of its foreign debts, no matter what the cost to its own people. He exported food, electricity, and oil that Romania produced, even while ordinary Romanians went hungry and sat in cold, dark apartments. Heating was cut in winter, shops were empty. People waited in long lines for basic food. At the same time, Ceausescu spent enormous amounts of money on grand building projects, including a massive palace in Bucharest, one of the largest buildings in the world, built while people could not afford bread. His secret police, the Securitate, watched everyone. Neighbors reported on neighbors. Speaking against the government could lead to arrest, prison, or worse. By the late 1980s, Romania was exhausted and broken. Its people lived in fear and poverty. But change was coming. Phoenix from the Dacian, the freezing December of 1989, a fragile spark in Timișoara ignited a conflagration. While the rest of the Eastern Bloc witnessed peaceful change, Romania's liberation was written in lead and fire. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of burning tires and the roar of a people who had reached their limit. Nicolae Ceausescu watched in terror as the chants of "We are the people" drowned out his regime. The revolution surged into Bucharest, turning monumental boulevards into theaters of war. On Christmas Day, the dictator was executed, and the monolith fell. The transition to democracy was a grueling odyssey through hyperinflation and social reckoning. Yet, from the ashes, a new generation began to forge a path toward the West. Over the ensuing decades, the scars began to heal. Integration into NATO and the European Union signaled a definitive return to the Western fold. Today, the glass towers of Cluj and Bucharest stand in contrast to the ancient stone citadels, a testament to a people who have mastered the art of the comeback. The Romanian story is one of profound continuity, a Latin flame that refused to be extinguished. As the nation looks toward the future, it remains anchored by a heritage as enduring as the mountains themselves, no longer guarding the border, but bridging the heart of a continent.